Hey, lovely people, don't forget to support our show by supporting our sponsor. Go listen to Shattered Worlds RPG and Foolish Wits on your podcatcher of choice, and let them know that you found them because of Unspoiled.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, a Song of Ice and Fire 2, the co-host switcheroo, the rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO spoiler edition, uncut, uncensored, and too hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits from 1998. Call in with your request now. In these chapters, which are Davos and Jon, 42 and 43, we get to see the scene that got condensed for the show, where Melisandre gives birth to a shadow baby. And Jon decides that he is going to go off and hunt wildlings. Welcome to Spoil Me. No, welcome to Some Spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha, I think.
Rashawn. Last I checked.
Who can tell?
It's all a mystery.
It's such a blur, my own existence. So, this chapter, Davos, because I remember when we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, we do actually see that, but is it like a flashback? Or I couldn't remember how it was, and it turns out it's a whole other guy.
Yeah. In the show, we get the whole scene with them going to the cave and her having the baby, the shadow baby. But that's what kills Renly.
Yeah, and Stannis is there, right? Is he there in the show?
No, I think it's just
He's
her.
not?
I
Okay.
think it's just her and Davos in the cave.
Okay.
But in the book, we don't get where the shadow comes from at all. It just shows up and kills Renly.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were throwing a lot of shade, and I'm not saying that I take any of it back, but at Stannis for, murdering his brother. And it turns out like he doesn't quite know that he did it. Like, he didn't, but he tacitly seems fine with it. It's like that plausible deniability thing.
I am torn with my reading of this. I kept kind of going back and forth. In the show, he's like, I think it's made very clear that he is understanding what's happening. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong, but I feel like in the show, I never had any questions about, his complicity in it. Mm-hmm. But in the book here, it is this, like, they have the whole scene where he dreamt of the murder.
Right.
But it's also like, but I was in my bed. Ask anybody. I was in my bed the whole time.
I woke up and my hands were clean.
Yeah, So I couldn't tell if that was... I couldn't tell what that was. Like, at first I was like, is he just saying this because it's Davos and he just is trying to make it clear for his benefit? Or does he really believe that his hands are clean? Like, I wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like he wants to think his hands are clean. And I think that if he were honest with himself and what he suspects, he would admit he thinks Melisandre did something.
So,
But he's so logical that I don't think he's, like, even willing to let himself go there,
so,
you know?
So it would be fair to assume then that there was never an explicit conversation with him and Melisandre about doing this.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. That's it strikes me as a very new reader of these books is kind of being at odds with his character, which I guess is the point of it all. You know, he doesn't seem, Stannis hadn't seemed to me anyway to be the kind of person that would engage in that type of denial. Like he can be in denial about well, actually not much, you know. He seems to be really aware of how he's seen and that he's not well loved. He thinks everybody is dumb for not loving him.
For sure.
But, you know, he doesn't seem to be in denial about that. Yeah, I guess if he has made, if he, and this is just me talking here.
That's fine.
If he has given himself over to the desire to be king and the rightness of him being king, you know, which is a funny thing. Like, people can become really attached to what they think is right. Whether
I don't know what you mean, but yes.
But so if he is so attached to the rightness of him being the true king, we are seeing how far he's willing to go with Melisandre to achieve that, right? Like, that's the whole thing about him slowly being less himself, in air quotes, and more like a less honorable person. You know, which is why the what you see in this chapter with Davos, he's so like, this isn't like what it.
Yeah.
He never comes right out and says what has she done to him, but it's low key like, what has she done to him, which is really kind of unfair because I really feel like Stannis is making a lot of these choices.
Agreed.
But this whole thing with Renly becomes like a choice that he made that he doesn't have to be responsible for, which is like what you're saying about the sort of plausible deniability, which is pretty cowardly. And I think the cowardly part is the part that feels to me like it doesn't jive with who I think of Stannis being. But maybe that's just the whole point of it all, is that this is not really who he is, but, you know, he's becoming something else.
Yeah. And it all sort of depends, too, on, like, what do you think Melisandre wants? Because that's the part with me that I get the most preoccupied by. It's, you know, it is tempting to say, what has she done to him? But there is the fact that, like, nobody has been on his side ever in his life. Right? Like, he has just not had anybody who actually cared about his station because they just didn't like him as a person. They didn't like his personality. And you can take that for so long and understand, well, and not everybody's going to like you, and it's not all about that. But when it repeatedly results in you getting shafted, you're going to be bitter, right? Like, you just can't help that to a point. And I feel like maybe she's just been feeding that bitterness, and she knows that he isn't going to agree if she lays it out. Hey, I can give birth to a shadow, a demon, some sort of agent of darkness to kill your brother and take him out of the equation. He would never say yes to that. But if she sets this up, even if he has his suspicions, she knows he won't question it. And that all circles back to, why is she helping him? What is it that does she genuinely believe that he is like, you know, somebody who is meant to rule? Like that he is some sort of prophesied, or is there something else going on that she's sort of playing him? Or, I don't know, you know, like, do you have any theories on that?
It's hard for me to theorize with these books a lot of the time because of the influence of the show. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I'm not sure about her motivation and why she picked Stannis, whether or not it was whether I believe she really believes in her prophecies, which, for the record, I guess at this point I'm going to say she's a true believer.
Okay.
But because, well, you know what? All right, for just for funsies. Because the thing is, too, is I don't remember, or I don't know if it's been made clear exactly when she showed up in Stannis' life. Right? I wish I had that pinned down a little bit better. Because if she shows up, I feel like he says, no, he doesn't say that. But if she, I was thinking, because when he's talking to Davos in this chapter, he's talking about some things that Melisandre foresaw and, you know, and all this other stuff. But that is all mostly about her seeing Renly not surviving at Bitterbridge and all that jazz. But what I was going to say before that is that if she shows up before Robert Baratheon is murdered, before the War of the Five Kings is set off, then why the fuck is she going to see Stannis? Like, what ulterior motive could she have to show up in his life, right? But if she shows up, do we know when she shows up? Do you know and you just can't tell me, or do we not know?
I honestly don't know if we know, because I don't remember everything.
Okay, gotcha. So if she shows up after Robert's been murdered, right? Then it's like, then if she shows up and she's like, oh, well, I saw a vision and you're the one, and well, then I would be like, oh, okay, well, that just seems a little suspicious, you know? And then, of course,
I mean, unless you buy into that she can see things in the flames and she knew what was going to happen.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if she could see into the flames and she knew it was going to happen, then I would think she would get there prior. Because then how do you convince Stannis that you're seeing stuff unless you've gotten there before Robert's killed, and then you can be like, see? And I told you were the run-to king, and this is how the road opens up for you. And then, of course, if you're going to get to Stannis or get through to Stannis or in any way make it so that he is listening to you, you definitely want to open with, well, you're the best Baratheon, and I don't know why anybody hasn't noticed that.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah, I see. Oh, it's like I have an itch now because I really want to know, like, when did she show up exactly?
I'm sorry that I suck at my job and cannot remember anything to give you helpful information. But I'm sort of wondering if I should just re-listen ahead, and because I've been reading along with both of us, because sometimes if I listen ahead, I will lose track of what is said when and inadvertently spoil you because I forget that isn't actually in this chapter.
Right.
But I don't know what's worse, doing that or just sitting here going, somebody can write in and let us know. Maybe I should just re-listen ahead.
I mean, if you were to accidentally blurt something out, it wouldn't, it would be fine.
It wouldn't what? It wouldn't what?
We would recover.
Quarrel. I'm just never gonna get over that I did that.
Oh my god.
Truly.
The very first like big reveal of
You guys. It was tragic. Like, it wound up working out, and it led to the live read phenomenon, which, but wow, what a fucking moment for me to just fuck up. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and listen to Harry Potter. But be forewarned that those first couple of books, the sound quality is bad.
Yeah. Well, what can you do?
We've got new stuff now. It's much better, but it was tough.
Also, fuck.
What?
I keep thinking that I made a joke about Dolores Ed in The Office. From like 2 weeks ago.
So wait, are you trying to remember your own joke?
Well, no. My joke is that if we were casting for The Office, that Dolores Ed would be Toby.
Yep. 100%. I just sent out those postcards today. But yeah, that is absolutely correct.
I kept thinking,
the difference being that Toby is like much more pitiful, whereas Dolores Ed feels like he's, enjoying himself.
I feel like the biggest difference is that people actually like Ed.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, sorry, Toby.
Poor Toby.
I hate so much about the way you choose to be.
It's so funny because the first several times I watched that show, I didn't really get why he was so awful. And then, like, on the third or fourth watch, it just hit me, and I was like, oh my god, Toby is awful.
Oh, God. I don't even, remember anything about him except for that antagonism that they had.
Oh,
but
my God.
Otherwise, I remember kind of being like, wow, Michael, this is irrational. What the fuck?
Because I think it was supposed to be completely irrational. Like, at the beginning, Toby was just like how a normal person would respond to those shenanigans. Mm-hmm. But then as the show dragged on, and yes, dragged on.
She said dragged.
They really started to lean into it and make him just like a sad sack and somebody you just don't want to be around.
Oh god.
To the point that by towards the very end of the show when the other guy is in charge, at one point he's just like, I understand why Michael hated you. I get it now.
Oh god.
But anyway,
I know it's such a cliche, and I don't always love it, but there is something so great about the tried and true, when you have an ensemble cast, one character just fucking hating another character for reasons that feel impenetrable to you, in the audience. But it's very fun to watch them hate each other for whatever reason. It's almost like, is there something in their history together? Is there bad blood? But
is there backstory I'm missing? Why won't you fill in the blanks for me?
Toby slept with Michael's wife or something, Anyway, okay. So, starting off with Davos, we are with a group of lords. Davos is, as usual, very aware of the fact that he is the lowborn one in this group.
That never leaves him. He is always aware of that. And I feel like I get it. And I think I would even side-eye a little. You know what?
He was there?
No. If he stopped being aware of that, stopped being hyper aware of it.
Got you.
But
I thought you meant if I was a lord, I'd be like, "What the fuck is this guy doing here?" And I was like, "Wow, Rashawn.
Oh,
all right, Thought you were Comrade Rashawn, but it turns out you're just one of the bougies.
But I was about to say, so my first point was going to be like, you know, if he suddenly was acting like, oh yeah, bitches, look at me, I'm a knight now. but I guess that is also a big part of just who he is as a person, because we've seen in King's Landing, you know, people get, you know, propped up and then suddenly act like you can't tell them anything. Like, what's his name? Janos.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I was thinking Lancel, too, because he gets, like, knighted.
God.
And he's just, like, insufferable to be around after that.
Well, at least Lancel is, like, sort of highborn, though. It comes from, like, a
true.
fancy pants
That's
family,
true.
you know?
Correct, yeah. That's fair.
But, this fucking... I love him, like, Davos now, like, looking at everybody who's shown up. And he is not impressed, because as it comes up later, and he just flat out says, you know, these guys were Robert's men last year and Renly's men last month, you know. Mm-hmm. And he is just not impressed with these turncloaks, is fucking Penrose calls them.
Yep.
Which should not have made me laugh, because I just laugh at, like, the most random shit. But turncloak...
Instead of turncoat?
Yeah, it just hit.
Yeah.
It just hit me, and I was just like, okay, yeah, of course, because, you know, these are all some cloak-wearing motherfuckers, so yeah. But...
the thing that got me is later on, Jon is talking about how, like, anxious Mormont was getting because the men hadn't returned. And it said something like, if they hadn't heard anything soon, Mormont would have been fit to, like, whelp cubs.
Oh my God.
Which is like, you know, he was going to have kittens if they didn't do something. But it's just like this real weird way of saying it. And I was like, I don't know if that one works actually there, George. But
this Penrose guy.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing they're doing with Edric Storm.
Yeah.
Is this going to be like what they did with Gendry in the show?
Why would I tell you anything about that? Do you, like...
My mistake.
Look, I confess that I don't remember a whole lot of stuff. That doesn't mean I'm just not going to do my job anymore. Like,
I thought that we were having an open and honest conversation here.
I don't know what gave you that idea.
So... I do like this Penrose guy.
Yeah, he has some balls.
He is just calling these people bitches to their face.
Yep.
And I appreciate it. He is challenging people. He threw a glove in Stannis' face like this was a Bugs Bunny cartoon.
I challenge you, sir.
I don't remember any gloves and faces throughout the run of the show. Which is
I don't think there were. Yeah, that's a good point.
A real missed opportunity, and I was so tickled to see it here.
I just love how he has no time for any of these posturing assholes. It's just, you really think you're doing something because you're on the side with the most guys. And I know that is not what makes a man. And y'all are just trifling.
Yeah.
Not to be trusted.
And just says it, like, straight out. And then when he's done, turns around and leaves. But before we get that fantastic exchange... it's Davos, you know, like you said, he's with all these other knights, but he's kind of bringing up the rear because, you know, he's a humble man. And he's noticing that, because he's been away, and he's noticing that Stannis looks bad. He's looking poorly. And we find out about these dreams that he's having, and he's not sleeping. And that word on the street is that Melisandre is the only one that can soothe him to sleep. And Davos is just like, oh, word? Is she now? What is she doing over there at night? Does she have another way to soothe him to sleep? And then immediately feels embarrassed that he thought that.
I love that he's just like, oh, that wasn't nice. But also, I still definitely want to know because I don't trust a bitch.
And he's talking to his son, who is one of Stannis' squires, and who has taken to talking about the Lord of Light and all that stuff. And Davos is just like, ugh. But then also immediately self-corrects, like, wait, though, he's a squire and he should take his king's god. And what is my problem? He's just constantly interrogating what he thinks and checking himself in his head, at least, when he's kind of out of line, and just like really considerate. You know what I mean? Like, really is very thoughtful. Yeah. I really, really enjoy that. And I wish
self-awareness, baby. It's a turn on.
I wish that we had more chapters of his, because it's been a minute since we've seen him.
I know. And do you want to know something amazing? We're only at, like, we are at this point, according to my Kindles, at 61% through the book. So we're over halfway, and Davos is only just showing up again. Yeah, it's been a while.
So yeah. Then we get the fucking I don't even want to call it a confrontation. The standoff with Penrose and literally everybody else.
Penrose, like, he just, everything that they say, everything, even when they're just like, oh yeah, we know Brienne killed Renly, and he's just like, bitch,
no, she didn't.
No, of course she didn't. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you think that? Nobody with a brain would ever think that. Oh my god, you know what? I don't even want to talk to you anymore. I'm leaving. Like, there's just this real energy of just him starting to get more and more frustrated as every sentence comes out.
It really does, because at the beginning he's like trying to sort of maintain a certain level of like civility. When Melisandre introduces herself, and she's like, you know, I serve your king and the Lord of Light, and he's like, well, that's all great. Good luck with those. And then somebody from the back like jumps in, because Courtney is like, oh, that's great, but I bow to other gods and a different king. And somebody's like, there's only one. You know? And he's like, did we come here to talk about theology? Because I'd have brought a septon or something with me if that's what we were doing.
Later on, when she says something about the Lord of Light, he's like, I hope the others bugger your Lord of Light and wipe his ass with... I don't even remember how it went.
He says something at Stannis at one point about single combat. He's like, I'll piss on your sword and put the flame out. This motherfucker is bout it for real.
I fucking love it. I love it.
So the sticking point, there's a couple of sticking points, but one of the biggest ones is that Stannis is demanding that this Edric Storm kid be released to him. And that Sir Courtney is like, absolutely not. And there's this kind of like other guy, this other guy in the mix, this Lord Florent, who is Stannis' wife's uncle, right?
Correct.
I get that right? He is doing an awful lot of talking for someone who's not in charge.
Ooh, this guy is not only not in charge, but was on the other side until very recently, and I can't get over the gall that it must take.
Just the other day. Some of these guys are still wearing the fucking rainbow cloaks from Renly. Like, how?
Really? I'm surprised that Stannis is allowing them to go around wearing those. I would have been like, we're throwing those. We're sacrificing that to the Lord of Light first.
Right? Like this one of the Karens is still wearing his rainbow cloak. And I
thought you meant Karen, like, I got so confused. Yes.
Like a Karen?
I was like, these Karens wearing their capes. And I was like, what? But their name is spelled Caron, and I can understand it being pronounced that way. It makes sense. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just didn't. That was
there's nothing I can't stand but a cape-wearing Karen.
Oh, God. Did you see that meme with, like, you aren't the daughters of the witches they couldn't burn. You're the descendants of the people who burned the witches and smiled while they lit up.
I did not see that. But
I was just
that
like,
it feels very accurate. Oh my God, that's one of
Went
my
for the jugular on that.
least favorite fucking things that I see floating around in the world.
Yeah, it's got very there are two wolves inside you energy. But for ladies,
for a particular type of lady.
Yeah.
But I guess to be fair, the two wolves thing is also for a particular type of person. So.
Yeah, true.
So this Florent guy is deciding that he's going to speak up about Edric Storm, and he's like, he's related to his grace. He's not going to do the boy any harm. I'll even vouch for his safety. And Courtney is like, how are you going to vouch for shit? You just, your word means nothing. You were literally running with Renly 2 days ago. And
so good.
The men are outraged. Like, all the lords, there's, a lot of harumph, and it's coming from the back.
Rhubarb. I love this, though. This is one of those where we all know that this is a thing, but nobody's supposed to say it. And why not? This is the whole thing.
Right.
Why isn't somebody supposed to say it? Yeah. Everything hinges on whether or not you can be trusted, guys. But Stannis is making do with what he's got.
Yeah.
It's just very sad.
It's very gratifying to read a couple pages later when Davos and Stannis talk in private. Mm-hmm. And we see Stannis be like, of course I know that these guys ain't shit.
Yeah.
But I need them for right now. And Davos is like, do you though? Do you need them? But so this goes on for a little while, and it's pretty, pleasant to read.
That's a weird choice of words for that, but okay, I'll allow it.
It's he fucking this Penrose guy. He's like, all right, so where's everybody else at? Where's the Knight of Flowers? Where's Rowan? Where's Randall? Where's Tarly?
He's doing the where they at, though.
He really is. And this is when he asks about Brienne, and he can't believe these people are buying this. And
their fucking claim is that she killed Renly when he spurned her.
Oh, yeah, because the first thing Courtney is like, okay, anybody who had eyes could see that she loved Renly. Mm-hmm. So she clearly wouldn't have done this. And somebody's like, well, women who get, their feelings hurt will murder you.
Bitches.
Basically,
bitches, am I right?
That's what that whole paragraph could have just said, bitches.
Also, can I just say that I mistook the other one when you said Karen, and I got confused, and then you just said Courtney, and I was just like, man, we've got Karens and Courtneys here. This is there could have been a better set of names. I don't know. I mean, it's fine, but it's very distracting once it's all said out loud. I'm just saying.
I'm also switching randomly between Courtney and Penrose for no reason. Just because. True. But, I can't.
I feel like George does that also. He just switches between first and last names.
Yes, he does. Thank you for that.
You said that as if you'd really been keeping it to yourself that irritated you.
I just felt validated. That's all for a second.
Yeah.
So then they start talking about how it was Catelyn who did it, and then they start fighting amongst themselves between whether it was Catelyn or Brienne who did it. And finally, finally, Sir Courtney says, because someone else is like, you have my oath about it being Brienne. The same guy who said, you have my, like, word about taking care of Edric, I think. The same guy. And so...
This is obviously just a fucking figure of speech for him, and it does not mean anything when he gives his oath.
Right, so this time it just hits, and this is when we get, like, the second outburst about how your word doesn't mean anything. You're wearing your cloak of many colors, the one you swore to protect Renly with your life, but I don't see him, but I see you. It's just...
Brutal.
Gosh. So finally Stannis has to just, like, kind of calm this down. And
here it is. May the Lord of Light protect you in your darkness, Sir Courtney. May the others bugger your Lord of Light, Penrose spat back, and wipe his arse with that rag you bear.
Good Lord.
All right.
Yeah, it gets, it's a very heated discussion. So, yeah, there's a glove thrown, there's a challenge of single combat. He's not going to give up Edric Storm. That is the sticking point. Stannis is like, you can't take us.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't seem to bother him.
Yeah, he's just kind of like, at least I'll be able to fucking live with myself. Which I respect. That is a good way to live. But, and I think, doesn't Stannis insist that he isn't going to hurt the kid?
Stannis doesn't. It's the other guy. The Lord Florent, who is like, no, he would never, his grace would never harm him, blah, 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 blah. Trying to see. I don't think Stannis makes any such guarantees.
Oh, yeah, here it is. You're right. His grace means the boy no harm. The child is his own blood and mine as well. And you're right. So Stannis doesn't say shit about whether he intends the boy harm, which is pretty conspicuous.
So Stannis is like, yeah, I'm not doing a single combat. Like, why would I have 20,000 men?
Yeah.
He tells him that, if you don't answer me, I think he tells him like a fortnight or something. I don't even know if it's that long. But he basically tells him,
to find the spot.
We're gonna come to the castle, and we're gonna come and try to wreck shit if you don't meet my terms. And then Stannis just, Sir Courtney is the one who leaves. And his last words are, if the gods will it, bring on your storm, and recall, if you do, the name of this castle. And then turns around and leaves.
It's pretty badass.
It's pretty good line to leave on, right? Mm-hmm. So,
I don't think it does him any good, but made quite a showing of it.
So then the rest of this is kind of like the men folk, trying to decide, like, what would be the right way to go. Mm-hmm. And then he asks Davos to ride with him, and they go and have their private chat, which was really good.
Yeah. I really appreciate how often Davos has to remind himself that he, promised himself he would never lie to Stannis, because otherwise he would right now. It definitely... He's feeling a little bit more worried about how Stannis is going to take everything than he usually is, I think. He senses that Stannis' patience, it's waning.
Yeah. Also, I think he's unsure about Stannis because Stannis with Melisandre now is not the same as the Stannis he knew before.
Right.
So some of this is just being like, I don't know how this version of Stannis will take my truth telling at all costs. Somebody in the group, I think it's Florent, wanted to go and get Courtney's father, I think, and basically try to use him as leverage. And Davos has to be like, yeah, that's not going to be a good idea because, you know, Penrose or Courtney would rather watch his father die than betray a trust. Mm-hmm. So all that would do is make us look bad. And then Stannis tries to be like, oh, so what are you going to have me do? Just spare the life of traitors? And Davos has to be like, you spared the lives of the guys behind us. Mm-hmm. And that's when
I do really enjoy that. He's like, it's not exactly without precedent.
Yeah,
sir.
right. And it's that he continues to be so honest with how he feels and what he thinks of some of these choices is pretty remarkable. And I love that after this kind of tense moment, Stannis is like, see, I told you. The Onion Knight tells me the truth. And says that he's missed having him around. And this is when he's like, yeah, I am surrounded by traitors. You know, you're not wrong. But I need them. But you're right to call me on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, aw, see? Those are the moments that make me think Stannis, you know, maybe wouldn't be
all right somewhere.
You know, he wouldn't
inside.
Wouldn't be terrible if he were in charge of like a small area. Not like the whole kingdom, but
oh my god, I would love you to be like, listen, Stannis, I actually think you are capable of managing, let's say, Storm's End, and that's all. And I hope you're taking that as the compliment it's intended to be. Brutal. And he also is just like, so you seem to sort of like this Penrose guy. And Davos is like, I mean, he keeps faith. And Stannis is like, he keeps faith with a fucking usurper. And Davos is like, I mean, yeah, but still.
Right? Like, that's you know, that's what it is. Like, being loyal and keeping faith that's the thing.
Yep.
And it's a lot more than you have in your group right now. Mm-hmm. Which is like another shot at how terrible these people all are.
Yeah.
And then we talk about Renly a little bit. And, there's this one moment where Davos starts to, like, that pouch with his fingers that he wears around his neck.
Yeah.
Which, when you say it out loud, that's just really, really...
really weird, right?
But and Stannis notices it and asks why. One, I can't believe you haven't lost them, and two, like, why do you keep them?
Yeah.
And they have this conversation about justice, and Stannis says a good act does not wash out the bad, and a bad act doesn't wash out the good. Each has its own reward. Until he tells Davos that you were a hero and a smuggler. Mm-hmm. And that is some real grown-up shit. But I don't know if Stannis really lives that anymore. You know, this sort of... Because he always strikes me as being such a black and white thinker. You know, everything is either or. And this sort of acknowledgement of duality seems like very aspirational Stannis. As opposed to actual Stannis.
Especially considering later on Melisandre's like, if there's rot in an onion, it's a rotten onion. Mm-hmm. Men are either good or evil. And I'm like, all right, but Stannis, like, so I think you're right. Either aspirational or this is like a vestige of what he really thinks, and he's just being influenced to change the way he thinks.
Yeah. I mean, his actions with Davos, for instance, are a really good reflection of this value. Mm-hmm. But I haven't heard Stannis actually say anything else that makes me think, oh, this is how he lives. But granted, the books don't really start until shit starts popping off. So maybe I didn't really get a chance to really know Stannis before all of this. So I like the idea that, as opposed to it being aspirational, that this is kind of, the last bit that's left over, of a different... Well, no.
What?
I wanted to say, maybe he used to be more this way, but I'm having a hard time saying that out loud. And I don't know why.
I'm not sure either.
I think it has to do with me not knowing this Stannis, so I'm having a hard time reconciling the two, But the reality is that this what happened with Davos happened so long ago. It is before I met Stannis, so I don't really know that guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Fair.
So it feels weird to be like, oh, this is what he used to be like, because I don't know what he used to be like.
Mm-hmm.
But if I just base it on how he treated Davos and sort of say, okay, that's probably how he navigated the world and how he behaved, then okay. He used to be able to see sort of layers and recognize that people aren't just one thing. But that has been lost as he either gets more and more bitter, even before Melisandre maybe,
Yeah.
And that bitterness is just sort of eaten away at his ability to really see people as wholes, Oh, that sounds bad, but you guys know what I mean. As whole beings, as whole
That's
people.
to see people holistically. How's that?
That works too.
Sorry. To see people as wholes.
As whole people, as whole beings.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. I know that I'm like 11 years old sometimes, but...
And then Stannis talks a little bit more about how good people will fight for Joffrey, and good people might fight for Robb Stark, even though they're fighting for false kings as far as Stannis is concerned. Mm-hmm. He thinks that, they'll fight for those people because that's what they're sworn to do, and that's like the noble thing to do. But when he talks about the lords that are now following him, he says they're different because they knew his brother was a usurper. And that makes them very different than the people that are going to be fighting for Joffrey and the people that are fighting for Robb Stark. And he says... Again,
I just love when he, acknowledges this stuff.
And he says that he pardoned them, and says forgiven, but not forgotten.
Yeah.
And then Davos says he has a moment where he has brooding on his plans for justice. And I like that too, because it just kind of makes me think of him thinking just let me get to be king, and then we're going to see about a few things.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the kind of thing, you can't say that shit out loud, because then they're going to be like, well, what motivation do I have to make sure I get punished later in the future at some point? Mm-hmm. Because these guys clearly think that they're going to get something, like a reward. And I'm like, y'all are living in a dream world. Do you really think,
Well, that's a really good question, right? Because if Stannis has pardoned them as king, and then say he becomes king, say he wins, and then he goes back on his word, would Stannis... Because that makes him dishonorable.
I don't know that you have to go back on your word to punish them. You can pardon them as traitors and still do something
oh, so you mean maybe take their land or strip their titles?
Yeah, just something petty.
Gotcha.
It's just kind of embarrassing.
I went straight to death penalty.
Yeah, I noticed that. Oh, well, if he just goes ahead and chops their heads off. Wait, what? How did we get here?
That's my bad.
Oof. Glad you're not in that position, I'm just saying.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
And there's some talk here, too, about Stannis wondering if the people, believed what they told. Because, he sent Davos off to spread the news about how Joffrey is the product of incest. And Davos is there was another story circulating, and it got to them first, and it sort of poisoned the well in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's exactly how that shit works, too.
Yeah, and it turns out that Stannis is aware. He is aware. And he says, Stannis says a couple of things. One, he's like, this thing about Robert, he could piss in a cup and men would call it wine. I offered them cold water and they squint in suspicion and mutter to each other about how queer it tastes. That is somebody who is really, really tired of people treating him shitty because they don't like him. He is really, really over it. And he says that if someone started a rumor, basically, that he turned himself into the boar that killed Robert, they'd probably believe that shit, too.
Yeah.
And,
I think they would,
yeah,
honestly.
Yeah. I mean...
he's like, that sounds like he's just making an exaggerate, but I honestly think that's, like, actually literally true.
I think it's funny that I know that he is being sort of, facetious here, right? But it's funny that his example of, like, crazy talk is him magicking himself into a boar.
Yeah, it's weird, right?
When he, magicked his shadow out to kill his brother. That's, like, the first thing that popped into his mind.
That's definitely how we say that. And he mentions at some point too about how like men say that it's sinful for Melisandre to stay in my tent. So the assumption that we all made because like I'll spoil you a little bit here. In the show, it is made explicit that Stannis is fucking Melisandre. Right? Like, we see him making out with her on the giant map of Westeros. Do you remember that scene?
I remember it now.
That incredibly uncomfortable table that nobody would ever want to fuck on. And, of course, Stannis would pick that table. That sounds right. But in the book, it's implied and never explicitly shown. And the thing that with him really looking terrible, is like theorized by a lot of people to be a symptom of her sucking out some of his like life essence in order to produce these shadow babies.
Oh. That
it's like she needs a part of him and his life force in order to create these things. And
sperm
so it's like it's not. I don't think it's sperm. I think
it's not
shadow sperm. It's a whole different kind of condom you've got to use for that one. LED condom.
It's like the fucking guy from Dr. Strangelove.
I never saw that.
Oh, it's one of my favorite movies. There's a whole fucking thing of one of the guy is like convinced that you have to stop having sex because you lose your essence, your manly essence every time you come.
So you just should never come?
Don't come.
Well, that doesn't seem like... Why was coming made a function of your body then?
Because men are weak, I think. But, like, if you want to be a strong man, then... but anyway.
You hear me immediately be like, what me over here?
You don't need any further explanation.
Right?
Like, all right. Okay. So, well, that's very interesting. I don't remember... Well, for one, on the show, they only had to produce the one shadow baby, so that wouldn't have had, like, a prolonged effect on Stannis, I guess. Right. It's not, like, that important. Yeah. That's interesting. So, in the books, why would they... Well, I was going to say, why would they do it on the show? Child.
You know why.
I do know why. That's why I just stopped even the dumbass question. So then they start talking about Renly And this is when we hear Stannis talk about, like, dreaming of Renly's murder, but then, like, waking up with clean hands.
Right.
And, my God, there's still so much more to go.
Yeah.
So, what happens after they have the countess? I'm sorry, I got completely...
You got so distracted by how much further there was.
Yeah, I forgot that there's still, like, they still have to, like, smuggle Melisandre into the cave. Like, all that stuff has to happen.
And there's also the conversation because, like, he asks Davos, what do you think I should do? Should I, like, siege? Should I just assault? And Davos is like, I don't see that you need this castle right now. Like, we have an actual war going on. And if you win that war, you'll get this fucking castle. So why don't we just go fight that thing? And we'll be golden. And Stannis is like, you know, that's a genuinely really good point. But the PR people tell me I can't walk away from this and maintain my aura of menace, which is the only reason that people are following me. Which probably is true. I don't think he's really wrong about that, but what a shame, because Davos is really correct in the practical sense.
Right. Now, on the show, they do go to King's Landing. I guess we still have plenty of book left. That could still happen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine, like, why. Like, if this Shadow Baby works, and I don't know if it will, but say it works, they get this castle. I guess if it works, they get the castle, then they could just go on to King's Landing and do Davos's thing.
What's Davos's thing?
I mean, like, go to King's Landing.
Okay.
Like, if the Shadow Baby works and the castle falls in a day, like Stannis is hoping it will, then they can also ride on, sail, or however he's talking about getting to King's Landing. I was thinking in my head, like, how does Stannis end up in King's Landing if they're doing this whole siege and with trying to get this castle? But Stannis doesn't think it's going to take very long, so they could theoretically do both.
I guess we'll have to wait.
Yeah, I guess I have to see. Oh my God. There's also mention of Salador Sand that came up real quick.
Oh my God. Fucking Stannis freaks out.
He really does. I don't
like, he lets Davos talk real talk to him and is fine. And then as soon as Salador Sand comes up, he's just like, that fucking guy.
Is there, like, backstory that we need? Why does
I don't know. Maybe he's the Toby.
I was so unprepared for such a visceral reaction from him. He got so mad.
He exploded. And that's what he says.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, are you here to serve me, or are you just gonna, like, keep bringing dumbass arguments up? Like, a minute ago, he was like, oh, I'm so glad to see you, and you always tell me the truth. So, I don't know, but he says he only thinks of gold. And his head is full of dreams of the treasure he fancies lies under the Red Keep. So I don't know. So let's see. They talk about that some more. He starts telling Davos about Melisandre's gifts for seeing the future, and Davos challenges it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Because Stannis is like, she saw what was going to happen with Renly, and Davos is like, but Renly was only here because you laid siege to the castle. He was going to King's Landing. Like, she can't take credit when you're the reason he was here.
And similarly, like, well, she knows what's happening tonight, and Davos is like, that shit isn't happening if I don't decide to do the thing. Like, it requires me to do it. So this is not some sort of, like, inevitability that you're trying to pretend it is.
And then there's this conversation about how, well, what she sees is like all things at all, all the possible futures, all the multiverse of it all.
Pretty much, honestly.
And they start talking about what you were saying earlier about how she shouldn't be in his tent. She also shouldn't be in his war councils, and that she shouldn't be like his standard bearer. They have a lot of things that she shouldn't be doing, if you ask the menfolk.
And, like, look, I'm not going to try and, like, defend the menfolk, but I'm not exactly not on their side.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
They put us in a real tough spot.
Yeah.
You know, because we want to be like, why can't she be all up in all those places? Mm-hmm. But we're also like, should she be there, though?
It feels like not a great idea. I'm just saying.
But that's more because we don't trust her. Right? Where I feel like these guys are mad because she's a woman and she's not, and she's a foreigner.
I mean, it's a woman, a foreigner. She's influencing him to worship a different god.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
And she's like staying in his tent. I feel like a lot of what people liked about Stannis is that at least he's like honorable to a fault. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But here he is just like shacking up in a tent with this bitch in front of everybody. You know what I mean? Like, so that just sort of, Stannis doesn't have a lot going for him in the personality department. Yeah. Honorability was like the thing, and it doesn't feel like that's as intact as it was. That's just my take.
I mean, I think like that's a very good, a really good observation. I also wonder if, he's so bad at dealing with people. She is also not great. You know, with talking to other people. Yeah. And maybe not talking to them like they are idiots.
Literal infants? Yeah.
So, whereas he is hard to take on like a really good day, and then you just add her to the mix, it's all terribly off-putting. Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
All right,
sorry, go ahead. I'm just gonna say one last thing is Davos is just like, why don't you just let Sir Courtney keep the kid? Like, maybe he'll yield if you just do that. Mm-hmm. And this is when he starts to say that he has to have the boy because she's seen that in the flames as well.
Yeah.
And they don't go into much detail, but I feel like that's really some bad tidings.
Yeah, when the mysterious red woman who gives birth to shadow babies is like, no, we really need that guy for this.
Yeah. And so he has asked Davos to sneak in Melisandre into like this weird under castle area of Storm's End, where they can't really break into anything, but she needs to be inside the castle walls in order to work this particular magic, because unlike where Renly was, this place is protected, and she says it's protected by very, very old magic, which I feel like we had read that somewhere when they were talking about it being built, right?
Yeah.
So, he has to get her at least that far. And then this is when they have the kind of a conversation. He is not here for her shit.
Not even a little.
And she asks him if he's a good man or a bad man. Just a good man, actually. She says, are you a good man? And he says, I'm good and bad. And this is when we get that, if an onion is black with rot, it's rotten all the way.
Yeah. Which, as a cook, no, I chop off the rotten part and I can continue to use the rest of the onion. But I am sure this bitch has never cooked her own meal in her life, so I wouldn't expect her to understand that.
He asked her right back, are you good or are you evil? And she laughs at his face and she says, I'm good, because they always tell you they're good.
Of course.
And he says, "Oh, you're good, a champion of light and life, but you're about to kill a man tonight." And he brings up the Meister again, or the Maester, and he is not letting that go.
Mm-mm.
And then he just comes right out and says, "And what about Renly?"
Yeah.
And she says it wasn't her. And he calls her a liar to her face.
She fucking said... I can't believe that she denies it. Like, you are about to give birth to the shadow in front of this man. What is the point in lying right now?
I guess in a weird way, she's got this kind of like, technically, no, I didn't do it. In the same sort of weird stance, technically my hands are clean. You know? Oh my God, she says to him, "You are lost in darkness," when he calls her a liar. And that is just what the fuck somebody like that would say too.
Completely. And there's just so many parts of this. I'm just like, but the moment where he says something about how, well, you're working with shadows. You're supposed to be an agent of light. And she's like, "Oh, you're so ignorant. Obviously, light casts shadows. So shadows can be agents of light. Dadoy."
Yes.
And I'm like, that isn't actually really as like logically sound as you seem to think it is.
She says there are no shadows in the dark, because he had said something earlier about the god of darkness. And she got real like squirrely. She's like, "Don't even say that name." And he's like, "No, the darkness is covering us right now. Like, we're literally sneaking in under the cover of darkness." And that's when she gets all, like, saucy about it. And that's when he's just like, "Well, you know, how about you and your shadows?" Shadows are servants of light, the children of fire. The brightest flames cast the darkest shadows. I mean, I guess, ma'am.
The brightest flames cast the darkest shadows. Haters gonna hate. What does that even mean? Shut up. I just hate this like fucking oofy doofy shit. I'm reading another book series right now for Spoil Me. And there's all these like vague prophecies, and I'm just realizing I don't have any fucking tolerance for like, I'm gonna say something really sort of vague and metaphorical that sounds like it could be symbolic. I won't explain what the symbolism is, and you'll feel like an idiot if you have to ask. So it's perfectly set up to make everyone feel like I'm being really profound, because maybe they assign their own meaning to it, or they don't get it at all and they feel embarrassed by that. And this just the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. That, what does that mean, though? You know, because that sounds like if you're going to be really good, you're going to have bad forces at work against you. But you're trying to say the shadows are part of their force, right? Is that like, so is she saying like the brightest lights have the strongest shadow soldiers?
I think she's trying to say that the brightest lights have the most power.
With the shadows.
Yeah. But, like, because the shadow, for her, is not necessarily a bad nor evil thing.
Right.
It sounds like it is, I don't know if power is the right word, but it's an aspect of the fire of the light, right? And so the brighter you are, the more either access you have to it, or the more you can wield it, or something in her weirdo mind. Because she calls the shadows servants, so I guess the brightest flame cast the best servants, the darkest shadows that can do what you need them to do. Not necessarily murder people. I'm hoping they have other, maybe they make you tea sometimes.
Really dry martini.
But then Davos is just like, shh. And he just nips all that in the bud because they get really close to the shore.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he takes her inside, and She gets out of her cloaks, and he realizes that she is quite pregnant.
Yep.
And he is horrified as she squats and poops out a shadow baby. I don't know how else to say it.
Gives birth to poop. It's not coming out of her ass. Why do you? What? Sean, you know where babies come from, right?
I've heard things.
I've heard things. What a weird response.
Well, I mean, what kind of question is that?
What kind of statement is she poops out a shadow baby?
Because I feel like she is standing and squatting, and it's not a real baby. It just happens to be in her belly, but, like, does it really matter where it comes out of? I mean, whether she poops it or it comes out of her vagina. The point is, this weird shadow thing slides out of her insides.
Wow, that was so much worse than poops out.
Exactly. I, for one, felt like I would just go with poops out because it just was quicker.
Slides out of her inside.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's what happened.
I just hated that.
It's got black fingers that are coiling out and
You
wrapping
got so
around.
quiet for a sec.
Maybe it's because I knew it's the terrible thing I was reading.
You're leaning away from the mic because you're trying to escape your own words.
The grasping black fingers coiling around her straining thighs, pushing until the whole of the shadow slid out into the world. Yeah, I'm just going to say she pooped out a shadow baby. Thank you very much. I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Oh, God. So, yeah, it takes off. It's like there for a second and then gone.
But he knows.
And Davos sees it and is like, oh, shit.
Yep.
And that is the end of that chapter.
Yep. No.
Indeed. So then we go to Jon. And everybody is waiting because they had sent scouts out and not heard from them for a while. And there are lookouts who have this horn that they blow to let them know who is approaching. And there is, an extra horn blow means that there's some danger headed their way. And so when the first horn blow comes, everybody sort of tenses and waits to see if it's going to get blown again. And then when it doesn't, they're all like, I wasn't even worried about it. Who cares? I'm fine.
I love they all have like a share a glance though. They're all just like, whew. Mm-hmm. Damn. Like, so glad that second horn didn't blow. That would have been a terrible way to start the day.
So he goes and reports to Mormont, and this is when it says he had grown more restive every day they waited, much longer, and he would have been fit to whelp cubs. Which I will never get over that. I just find that so funny. And we get some information. The men from the Shadow Tower had been expected days ago. When they had not appeared, the brothers had begun to wonder. Oh, I'm sorry. I said these were scouts. That's not correct. These are dudes from another spot. And a lot of people are sort of like, when they take so long to show up, there begins to be some mutterings. And later on, despite the fact that they have shown up at this point, Jon overhears some continued mutterings.
Yeah, because they show up, but they look, they're a little banged up. They have run into trouble. They've lost, a couple of guys. A couple of other guys are, wounded from fighting. And they bring sort of bad tidings about what's actually going on out there. And like you said, there's a couple of guys that are sitting around and not feeling great about things, wondering if they need to just go back home to Castle Black. And it turns out that there's a handful of people that really think that is the way to go. And I realize at this point that Mormont is still alive.
Good. I'm glad that you have that grasp.
Because what happened is my timeline and I can't remember exactly, but in the show, when he's killed, it happens at Craster's.
Right.
Do they go back to Craster's?
I don't remember how that goes in the show.
Right? I can't remember if they leave and then they go back and that's when he's killed, or if he never makes it out of Craster's when they first show up. So I forgot all about that until the mutterings of this chapter. And I was like, oh shit, that's right, they killed him.
It's I won't get into it, but that was like the beginning of the real decline of the show for me, was the way the show decided to like handle everything that happens at Craster's. I felt like it was so gratuitous and gross. Yeah, it makes me very angry to think about it.
Sorry.
What can you do?
Oh, God, you know what? I hadn't thought about the details of that, but now that you're talking, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
And that was like the beginning of an internet fight that I got into with another podcaster who I will not talk about, but that was like when things began to go left with them, like not having the same problems with things that I did, and them taking offense at my like being frustrated with them. And so I also have like this weird baggage surrounding it, because it was the start of a breakdown of a relationship that I was previously like, oh yeah, we're on the same page, you know? But yeah, it's just, you know, I'm not even gonna get into it.
Yeah, don't.
Okay.
Don't. But,
so we have like the talk about all the men disagreeing about what they should do. You know, did you listen to the audiobook for this, or did you read it?
I did not. I had to read these two.
I don't know. Look, I know we have talked a great deal about what's-his-face's voices for people. But he has given Thorin this, like, pronounced stutter in his speech. And it's not in the text. It's not written like, you know, a stutter's usually represented with like, you double the first letter of the words and there'll be like a hyphen between them to let you know it's like part of the same word. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's not done for this character at all. And I don't know where he got that or why he's depicting him with a stutter, because like, unless that's mentioned earlier and it's simply not written that way because George didn't want to be bothered. But I found it so, because I switched between audiobook and text. And when I switched back to text and realized it's not written that way, I got so confused, because that's like a very deliberate choice to make. For no reason, apparently.
Maybe George gave him a note.
Maybe. I feel like George would have given him a lot of other notes if he was into giving notes to this guy at all.
I feel like all of these things that we don't like about his performance are all direct notes he got from George.
Oh, God. That would be really funny,
you
actually.
You should do this. When you should make sure you sound like a pirate when you do this character.
When you do everybody's voice. When in doubt, pirate. Go for it. Every time.
Yeah, that's obviously I don't remember if it's ever mentioned that, you know, he has a stutter or not, but it's definitely not written that way. And I can only imagine that it must have been kind of jarring.
Yeah, it was just like, it was just confusing. Like, you know, usually if that's a thing, it's like, you know, a part of their character that gets mentioned. And it was weird to me that that's just, I don't know. It's like, just deciding to give Catelyn a stutter. Like, why would you do that? It's not like, it's a very deliberate choice to make. Anyway, so yeah, there's the long discussion with everybody about what to do, and they're worried about wildlings, except some of them are not worried about wildlings at all. Thorin is convinced, basically, that they aren't a threat, because there are only going to be a few actual fighters in the midst of, like, tons of women and children. And that the fighters that are there are going to be drunk, probably. and so won't even be up to it.
Yeah, we're gonna.
And I'm just like, I
them.
genuinely want to know what you think they're drunk on. Like, what do you think is happening up here?
Yeah, they're going to sweep over them and send them howling back to their hovels. Which, you know, I don't know what kind of stories he's been hearing, but all the stories I've been hearing say a complete opposite thing. And the thinking Jon has at the end of all this, like, back and forth is that there's no way Mormont's going to just, like, retreat.
Yeah.
Right? That's not happening. And as far as just going up to meet the wildlings, that's not going to happen either. So they're just going to sit and wait.
Yep.
And that's what ended up happening until Qhorin Halfhand and his crew show back up. And
Sam comes running over when he hears the horn and asks Jon, "Is it your uncle?" And I was like, "Are you still thinking that's a thing, Sam?" Like, I am just surprised that anybody still expects to find him alive. But, you know, I guess good for you for having hope.
It was a weird thing because, like, it's like, you know, for him to just, you know, come right back out and have that be the first thing that pops in his mind. But what ends up happening is that it just sort of gives Jon an excuse to tell us about the cloak that he found and remind us that that's the thing that happened.
Right.
And we find out that he also, like, handed out some of the dragon glass to a bunch of people and made like little daggers for people. And I feel like that's going to come up sooner than later, and it's probably a good thing that he did that.
Yeah, a lot of people are just kind of like, thanks,
Yeah.
I guess. I definitely don't want a glass knife because that feels really pointless, but okay. It looks cool, I guess.
Yeah, like, I think Mormont isn't even carrying his anymore.
Yeah.
Which I feel like, you know what? That's how he's going to die. Maybe he doesn't get murdered by everybody. He's going to, like, find a white and not have the dragon glass dagger that Jon gave him. Mm-hmm. Because he just left it, like, as a paperweight or something on his desk.
So embarrassing.
So Qhorin Halfhand goes and has, like, a private meeting with Mormont, and Jon can't hear what's happening.
Yeah.
And he is disgusted. As I was, too, because I wanted to know what was going on in there. And,
He comes up with a pretext.
Take their plates in for him. Mm-hmm. Who is this guy? Chet is one of the people muttering.
Yeah.
About, like, following this old man. And how, there's this guy named Lark the Sister Man.
I think that it's because he's from the Sisters. The islands, I think, is why he's called that. I might be wrong about that.
Okay, I'm going to accept that shit and make it so. Because otherwise, I just didn't know what was happening.
That's fair.
And Jon overhears this and realizes that he probably was not supposed to hear that. And he, like, gets out of the way before anybody realizes that he's there. Hopefully, it turns out nobody saw him. And he was able to go into the tent with the dinner and or breakfast or whatever, and gets to talk to Qhorin and Mormont, and things don't look good.
Yeah,
they have all of this land, the wall, these huge stretches that castles are, like, falling apart. Mm-hmm. One of the ones, Mormont's like, "Oh, we can get some guys at that one," and Qhorin is like, no. That place is a mess now.
Yeah.
It has largely collapsed. You'll want to use this other one. And they're talking about ways to try to defend it. And we find out that, according to the prisoner that Qhorin had before he died, they are planning on breaching the wall.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, crazy talk.
Unthinkable, basically. Like, Mormon's like, that, like, men with tools made for doing that would take a year to get through. How?
And it turns out the answer is magic.
Yep.
I don't remember this being part of the show either. So this is, I mean, I'm fuzzy what I remember, what I don't remember, whatever. But I feel like when we meet Mance Rayder with Jon Snow in the show, it is not about, like, magicking their way through the wall.
Yeah, it has a very different flavor.
So this here is, I was like, oh, really? Sorcery? Okay.
Yeah, I had kind of forgotten how, like, outright it is. You know, because it's also interesting since we know that, like, the dead come back to life at this point in the story. Mormont does not just dismiss this out of hand. Somebody's like, they're going to use magic. And he's like, I just saw a guy with bright blue eyes walking around after he was dead for like 10 hours. So, okay, maybe they can use magic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And granted, you know, this information that he got is from somebody. We don't know how reliable it is, you know.
Yeah, it was somebody being tortured, and the guy was like, we may have gone a little bit too far. Yeah, he definitely had more to say, but then he just died on us.
And then one of the times he even says, I think he was telling us extra shit, like making shit up to keep us from killing him, like to keep him around. So, you know, it's like take it with a grain of salt. But what they decide that they have to do at this point, they have to do something.
Yeah.
And what is decided is that they're going to send some scouts out into the mountains to try to get a better idea of what Mance has planned, how many people are, you know, he has, and what look like fighters, and just anything that they can learn. And Corin wants 3 groups. What did he say? 3 parties of 5.
Party of 5.
Oh my god. That just came up for me recently. Why was that? Oh, I've been watching the Dark Side of the 90s.
What? What is that?
It's like a pseudo documentary on one of these cable channels. I think it's Vice, because they do the dark side of every fucking thing.
Ooh.
So it's just like I watched this whole episode.
Party of 5 is part of the dark side?
It was a whole thing on sitcoms.
Okay.
And I can't remember. I can't remember why they were on there. Maybe it was just because it was the way the sitcom came about was weird. 5 kids whose parents die.
I've never seen that show, and I
never
I always thought it was a drama. I didn't even realize that it was a comedy this whole time.
It wasn't a comedy.
Oh, okay. You just said it was about sitcoms.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's unfair. But yeah, it was just TV shows in the 90s.
Gotcha.
And they went through this angsty period. There was a whole thing on Beverly Hills 90210, and then how angsty teen dramas suddenly became a thing because they didn't really exist before.
Right.
And Party of 5 was one of the ones that was listed. How the fuck?
We get on weird shit.
How
in
did
this.
that even
We
come
really
up?
do. Because you said you wants 3 parties.
Oh my
of 5.
god! We should have been able to just say that and keep going. That didn't deserve a whole fucking side conversation.
I would love to see a mind map of our conversations and the different levels of tangent, because we'll get on a tangent and it's got level 1 is Party of 5 TV show, and then we'll get into second level, VH1, Dark Side of the 90s. And, there's progressively further out the branch. And I would love to see, some of the episodes where that branch really extends.
Oh, my God.
We have trouble finding our way back at all.
I just got, the worst wave of anxiety just even thinking about, seeing in real time what these tangents look like. Oh.
You know what's really remarkable, too, is that when I do Spoil Me, I fucking still do this, and I'm by myself. I'm alone on camera, and I fucking lose track of myself by myself. It's really...
I think it is... I know that there are places where you can just stick right to the material that's in front of you. I know that there are some podcasts out there that do that.
Allegedly.
Mythical.
Legend tells.
But I feel like they probably edit a lot of stuff out. I don't think it's possible to have a conversation with someone and not, say something that sparks something in the other person that reminds them of, a thing or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how you do that.
And, I personally really enjoy that part. That's part of why I listen to Complete Guide to Everything, because that show, it'll say, this episode is about the sun. And then it's not. It is 50 minutes of talking about how weird Wikipedia is. And eventually they'll talk about the sun here and there just to be like, oh, these facts are boring. Mm-hmm. And then they just continue talking weird and I like it. I like that the thing it's labeled as barely comes up. That's what I'm here for.
I feel like for us though, we kind of put ourselves in a box because we're like, hey, we're doing these 2 chapters of this particular thing.
Hey, we eventually get there. We stay on task better than the Complete Guide guys. I'll just say that. We eventually do cover everything. There's only been a few times where I'm like, wow, we really went on a tangent and I completely forgot to mention this thing that I thought was actually kind of important or interesting. That doesn't happen often, So... Anyway,
we're just here, kids. We're just doing what we can do. We're doing the best we can under these trying circumstances of trying to stick to the 2 chapters.
Trying circumstances. What a burden we carry. Truly, it's heavy as the head that wears the crown.
So then. Lord Commander says you can have your 3 parties of 5 individuals. And you can pick them. And he turns around and says, without a second to even think, I choose Jon Snow.
Just goes for it.
Just goes for it.
What do you think that's about? Because he, recognizes Jon just because he looks so much like his dad. Alleged dad.
That's really funny. I didn't even fucking think about that. People are like, oh, you look just like Stark. Anyway, I didn't think that there was anything more to it than figuring that, because he's, I know he's not highborn, but, he might, highborn adjacent, that he has been trained. I think that I know he says very clearly that the Starks were always friends of the Watch. He says right here that the gods are the first men and the Starks are the old gods that are beyond the wall. So he makes it all sound like it would be good for me if I had Jon on my team.
Okay.
And, I'll be honest, you guys, I didn't really even think that there was anything more going on than that.
I'm not saying there is. I just thought it was interesting that he just zeroes in on Jon like that.
If you look around, no shade to everybody
Not a lot
else.
of options.
That's exactly where I was going with that shit. And this description of Corrin Halfhand, we find out how he lost his hand. Well, he didn't lose his hand. He lost some fingers.
Yeah.
In a spectacular fashion.
Yeah.
It's not I just let somebody cut off 2 fingers because I got caught stealing. No shade to Davos. But this is somebody came at his head with an axe and he just put his hand out to grab it.
Yep.
Lost the fingers and then took the bloody stump of hand and smashed it in the face of his assailant, blinding them with his own blood that was spurting out of his hand, and then bashed their head in, I think, with the very same axe.
That is a man who thinks on his feet.
Listen, if he asked me to go somewhere, I'd probably go too. Be like, okay, where are we going?
And Mormon is like, well, he's really young, and also he's not a ranger, and also he's my steward, and he makes really good mulled wine, and I kind of don't want to give that up, if you don't mind.
He is like a little bit kind of like, I mean, do you have to? Mm-hmm. And he asked Jon, what is your will? And immediately Jon is like, oh, it's the go. It's the fucking go. Mm-hmm. And Mormont is not surprised.
Yeah.
And
the old man smiled sadly. I thought it might be.
Yeah. So, they're going to ride at noon.
Yep. So that is the end of the chapter, is making plans.
Yeah. To
go out into the cold expanse and try and track some wildlings down.
Yeah, I wish I could remember more about what was coming next in the show, but I really can't.
Why?
I don't know.
I don't want that. Was that helpful?
It was super helpful.
Good.
Thank you. Just put the kibosh on all of those wants and feelings and desires just dead now.
Don't want that. All right. Well, I feel like that was pretty much... I'm looking at the notes really quick from Austin Arminio, but actually pretty much everything he sent we touched on already. I'm proud of us. See?
Wow.
Despite our tangents, we still managed to keep it together, be wildly informative, except for the part where you were like, do you know this and can you not tell me? And I was like, duh.
I had my usual several cases of very poor phrasing, so we're going to head check that box.
Looking at people as holes. That will never not be funny. Man, I saw, oh God, this woman that I am friends with on Facebook, she shared a picture of this alarm clock design. You know those ones that are meant to look like the sun is rising? Like the light helps wake you up?
No, ma'am, I do not.
You don't?
Why would someone want that?
It's like meant to be a gentler way to wake up than right in your ear.
Okay.
And it's meant to mimic, like, the human body's response, because melatonin keeps you asleep. And when the light begins to hit you, that begins to wear away. So that's the point. Like, that's what it's supposed to do. But the designs of them normally, they're just like a disc. They're meant to look like the sun. And this one that she found is round with a hole in the middle. And the like color of the plastic that the light is covered in is this odd, like, pinkish, almost flesh tone, fading into like a darker pink in the middle. It is so very vaginal.
No.
And hold on, I have this picture. So I saw that today, and her caption on it was, "I am once again begging the tech industry to hire more women." So when you kept saying, like, sees people as holes, this was the thing that I thought of. I just sent the text to you. What are you doing over there? Are you messing with paper clips? What's happening?
I'm taking my pills. I gotta take them before we finish.
A little clickety clacks. Did you get it? Nobody. I'm sorry, everybody listening who can't see this, but it's a Philips Smart Sleep.
Sweet
alarm
Jesus.
clock. If you're interested,
what the fuck,
right? And just like all the comments
like
are people
really
making
bad
fleshlight
sex
jokes.
Toys. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So humans as holes. That's all I'm saying. New patrons this week. Bob Green, Emily Hunter, and Armand Dormus. Welcome to all of you. Thank you all so much for pledging. I'm sorry if you're regretting it now because of the humans as holes.
Listen,
but
ma'am.
It is what it is. I stand by our product. I feel that was pretty on brand, so I don't want to misrepresent us and act like this is a one-off and will never happen again. It will happen again. I'll probably share this upsetting alarm clock image in the chat at some point, and maybe I'll do it right now with no context, and people won't find out for like a week what the fuck this was even about in the Discord. But yeah, if you would like to join the Discord as well, that is not patrons only, and there is going to be a link in the show notes, and you guys can come in and chat in the spoilers and no spoilers chat. Just to clarify real quick, because we ran into a bit of a thing, the no spoilers chat means absolutely no spoilers, not even covered with the Discord, like, you know, can put basically a black square over your words to hide them. Even that is not allowed. That's why we have a spoiler channel, for all that stuff to go there. If it's out at all and Rashawn can accidentally click on it and spoil herself, that just defeats the whole purpose. You know, because it doesn't take much to see those spoilers. You're on the app on your phone and your thumb grazes it and boom, it's all right there to see.
If I'm in a no spoiler chat, I don't know that you are like not trying to spoil me. For all I know, you're trying to, like, somebody up thread said, you know, something.
Exactly.
So I won't know that it's not for me to see because I'm assuming anything in that chat is safe.
Exactly. So just to clarify that, there are some things that I haven't made two separate spoiler, no spoiler channels for because they don't get enough activity. So it's not really worth it. But the stuff that I cover for my main shows, there are two distinct channels for that reason. So anyway, yeah, come and join and chat with us on that. There's a lot of theorizing on other things going on. And I want to also say congratulations to Miles. I'm co-hosting Mistborn with Miles, but we are going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus from the show because he recently welcomed his newest addition to his family into the world, a baby Simon, who was born on Halloween night.
Yeah, it's like it's an unspoiled podcast baby.
Right? I love this. So, congratulations to Miles and Sharon.
We had nothing to do with any of it.
We had everything to do with it. I like to think of myself as at least 50% responsible for Miles's marriage. Did I know Sharon? No. Did I introduce him to Sharon? No. Did I have anything to do with it? No. But I'm taking credit. Hi, Miles. He's listening to this and going, "What do you even mean?" I just gave him some advice here and there, but mostly he just went for it. Good for you, buddy.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if there's a holiday for the podcast, it's Halloween, right?
100%.
And then he went out and had a baby on Halloween. So I'm just saying,
I can't tell you guys how resentful I am the day after Halloween. Like, I'm just supposed to, like, stop being in the Halloween mood now. I've just started to build my head of steam up by the end of the month. Like, I'm still going for it. And people are out here putting fucking Christmas lights up. The instant that their doors lock and the children take their masks off, they turn Christmas carols on. I can't do it. It takes me a long time to let go of my Halloween shit. Anyway, all right, guys. Thank you all for listening. We love you. And we will see you next week with 3 more chapters. Until then. No, 2 more. Lied. 2 more chapters. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Jon, Tywin Lannister.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.